Hi, everybody, and welcome to Pema TV.
Welcome to Friday, February 28th, the last day of the month.
How about that? Beware the Ides of March.
That's right.
Well, folks, if you haven't heard, Metaluna Boutique and Stones also is doing a weekly meetup at the shop.
Bi-weekly.
Bi-weekly, that's correct. If they showed up in between, that'd be embarrassing, wouldn't it?
For them, because nobody'd be there.
Every 2 weeks, we're doing a meetup at the shop. Be sure and join us on meetup.com. Look for Metaluna Metaphysical Meetup. You will become a half-mooner.
Yeah.
How cool is that, a half-mooner? And you can join us every other week.
And you can join Eric tomorrow.
Yeah, and because Kim has a special case, she has to go. There's some kids involved, so... And this week at Metaluna, we're showing you a picture of our amethyst and rose quartz.
Yep. I was waiting to see if you knew what
I knew what it was.
It's actually a 2-strand. So it doesn't look as great in the box as it does on.
Mm-hmm. And you can find that in all kinds of handmade jewelry,
Yeah.
brand new fashion clothing.
Handmade soaps, dolls, toys, knickknacks, stones, incense, crystals. I just made a bunch of new pendulums.
Yep. At Metalunaboutique&Stones.com.
And candles, because Mary's in the room and she loves the candles.
Yep, candles are great. Tonight we're joined by a gentleman that I have been to several interviews on another that he's been on another show. Well versed in the media outlets. We are a small fish compared to who he's talked to.
And I've actually met him.
And he's also a great guy. But tonight we are joined by Corvus Nocturnum. And Corvus, how should I describe you?
That's an interesting question. I kind of like to think of myself as a modern-day Renaissance man, simply for the fact that I love the classics, art, literature, music, and I try to be involved in all of those vocations as much as possible, if not through my own endeavors, then by publishing and producing other people that have such talents, because I enjoy it so much, and I think that without the arts, we would be a very boring people on the face of the planet.
True. Let me read this, taken from your website. Corvus Ewers is an author, publisher, and lecturer who has written over a dozen books on popular culture. The content ranges from vampires and zombies to the devil and the occult. You've been a consultant on A&E Channel's Paranormal States. You've appeared as a guest speaker at DragonCon, Scarefest, Parafest, and interviewed on BET Channel's The Lexi Show. You were also interviewed in October on 2009 in Penthouse, and that's not a forum. We want to make sure everybody knows that wasn't in forum. That was in the regular magazine. Articles on sex and Satanism. You're an artist, specifically a painter.
That's correct.
And you lecture at conventions, universities, on other subjects and societies, golf culture, and you do your best to debunk many myths and stereotypes prevalent about dark subcultures. And I would read, I'm going to hold this up for my audience. I made this a smaller font where it would fit on one page. But everyone, that's how many books he's written. That's a lot of books. Your most recent book was One Zombie Nation. Yes, it was.
Actually, Eerie America, Travel Guide of the Macabre, just came out today to hit store shelves.
Wow, okay, well then I wasn't off by much. If it just came out today, I didn't miss it by much.
Right. Zombie Nation was the previous one, about 4 to 6 months ago.
Well, Corvus, I have to ask this. Who and what defines what is defined as because a lot of people define, the Gothic movement, some Satanism sometimes, a lot of occult things, they define them as a subculture, but who defines that?
That's a good question. I think we as a people do, whether it be the inhabitants of those subcultures themselves or sociologists, as I almost jokingly refer to myself as a dark sociologist, a vampirologist, just kind of tongue in cheek a bit. But that is a good question. I think the people on both ends of the spectrum, the ones who need to have the label to identify themselves, do it, and so do the people that try to seek to understand it. We as people need to have labels to mentally be comfortable in identifying the things that we encounter in life.
Yeah. Or labels to become uncomfortable and blame someone else.
That's true. If you want to point
right,
the finger, you don't want to go. If you want to, I guess, if you want to point the finger, you don't want to point the finger at stuff. You want to have something to call that stuff that you're pointing your finger at. I guess.
Exactly, and it's very unfortunate that we have that inherent need, because that's how we scapegoat people. That's how we have bigotry and hatred, from stereotypes and from misunderstanding each other.
Yeah, and or arguing over vocabulary. Would you agree with that?
Yes, I will say as an author and publisher that vocabulary and words do have meaning. However, I think we sometimes get hung up on the semantics so much that we don't try to comprehend what another person is trying to really say.
I would agree with that. And a lot of people, occult, because of Hollywood and some overzealous Christians, as much as I hate to say this, the word occult has taken on a not so good connotation. But occult simply means everything else, basically.
Yeah, the Oxford Dictionary calls occult as that which is hidden, and we could have said that for hundreds of years, but almost nothing is truly hidden. The ancient secrets of the Masonic order, has been the stuff of movies like Johnny Depp from Hell and other things. Nothing is truly hidden as much as has been researched and written and explored on History Channel and other documentaries. So, other than what science is trying to delve into now for the future, I don't think that much is truly occult, other than the label that we put upon certain religious and esoteric paths.
I kind of have to agree with that. Kind of outing myself, I was a Job's daughter, which is the teen version for the Masonics, for girls.
Right. My great-grandmother was that.
Yep. And I didn't hear all this hoo-ha and hocus pocus about the Masons until I got into the paranormal.
Right. My grandfather and great-grandfather were members fairly high up, but they were also state representatives, they were lawyers, they were businessmen. They didn't see it as anything mystical, metaphysical. It was just an aspect of, the lodge that they were a part of, because it was more of a fraternity to them to help nurture their careers.
Right, and what people don't realize is the Shriners Hospital you're donating to, the Shriners are Masons.
Right.
Well, and not necessarily along the Shriners, because those are quote-unquote mystic organizations. They everybody knows what they do, and they know they do great works, but they know when they close the door, people have weird, strange misconceptions about quote-unquote rituals they may or may not do. I'm not even going to hazard a guess to define any of them because I don't know. But
right.
What are some other common misconceptions that you've seen of occult practices? Because the actions of the Masons behind closed doors, could be termed occult practices.
Yes, in the most literal sense. I don't know. I never was a member, and my family never really talked too much about it.
We're not supposed to.
Yeah, they were very secretive. You have to remember, this would have been during the 1920s up to the 1950s, that sort of thing, and it was all very secretive. Not like things are today, so it's difficult to say.
I wasn't specifically meaning about the Masons. I'm just saying, generally, there may be different paths and different belief systems that do quote unquote occult practices, and I was wondering if you had any if there were some common misconceptions about those that you could help debunk for some of our viewers.
Okay. Well, specifically, what I'm most familiar with is the Church of Satan. I'm a reverend and a media representative with them, and one of the things that we hold dear is Walpurgisnacht, and that is around the same time as the pagan holiday of Beltane. It is 6 months before or after, however you want to look at the calendar, from Halloween, which we also celebrate because we enjoy the ooky spooky trappings. We often joke and say that Satanists are atheists with Addams Family trappings. But for us, Walpurgisnacht is simply a day to be frivolous, indulgent, and not that we aren't that way on a regular basis when whim strikes us, but that's more of a holiday where we acknowledge it.
Well, if you could you demystify and explain some of the beliefs that go along with Satanism?
Well, I mean, for years, people have said that we're animal sacrifice and baby killers and that sort of thing. But the FBI, specifically Field Agent Kenneth Lanning, wrote during the Satanic Panic of the 1980s that no member of the Church of Satan has ever been accused, let alone found guilty of any such crime. We pride ourselves on the fact that we don't have criminals within the organization. We're creative types. We are musicians, artists, publishers, authors. And on the other end of the spectrum, many of us are in law enforcement or military service or some sort of role like that. We're hardly the big bad boogeyman. We don't wear death metal T-shirts and throw up the horns, at concerts. We think such actions are ludicrous and immature.
Yeah, I mean, there are some, and I'm just generalizing this from the media exposure that I've had, but generally, Satanism is more about taking care of just yourself as opposed to being a part of a huge group. Is that fair to say?
I think it is. Let's see.
It's slightly more self-centered than group-centered.
It is, but I want to reassure people that from a philosophical standpoint, whereas witchcraft, Wicca, as a denomination of it, is more about others and the universe and doing more good for the overall. Satanism is about the self and the individual in a positive, pragmatic point of view that we prefer that if we take care of ourselves first and foremost, then we're fit and able to take care of those that are important around us. And in doing so, we set a good example that other people need to take care of themselves.
So basically it's love yourself, and then you can't love others until you love yourself.
Basically.
Exactly. We very strongly believe that, and I often tell people during interviews or at college lectures or any type of event that I'm asked to present at, I look at the audience and I say, how many of you are parents out there? And inevitably, a large portion of the audience will raise their hand, and I look at them and I say, if you don't take care of yourself, who's going to provide for your children? That's what Satanism and selfishness is. It means you're not going to be a doormat. It means you're not going to become unhealthy. You're not going to try to, deliberately do stupid things that will cause you physical harm. You're going to look out for yourself because this is the only life that you have. And even those people who believe in multiple past lives, I look at them and say, well, this is the life that you currently have, so why are you wasting it?
Correct. And I have to ask this, in your opinion, do you think that Satanism, to a certain degree, you have to be able to have free thoughts, you have to be a free thinker to be involved? You cannot really have a sheep-type mentality to be involved in Satanism?
Exactly. We are so against dogma of any philosophy or religion that forces you to kowtow to the wishes and wants of any human being, let alone the deity. We feel that we are rational Epicureans who can make sound decisions for what we need to do for ourselves and with our lives. Responsibility to the responsible is one of the sayings that we have.
Wow. And and a lot of people don't know this message, do they?
Unfortunately, no. I kind of get a laugh out of some people when I say, if you were to take the name off of the Church of Satan and just call it the Church of Humans, or take away the spooky trappings that we have associated with us, we're a very practical yet boring philosophy. There's not a whole lot to it other than a little bit of Nietzsche, a little bit of Ayn Rand, and the works of Thomas Paine, and some of the classics are thrown in because we're trying to bring back the older values of meritocracy.
Wow. How did your travel down this path start for you? I mean, you obviously you didn't just wake up one day and go, "Oh, I'm going to be a Satanist."
Well, interesting that you say that, because we have the feeling that Satanists are born; they're not made, but we do have to discover that that's what we are. Someone introduced me to it a long time ago, to the Satanic Bible, and I just kind of looked at it like, "What's this?" I didn't have the stereotypes put on me like most people, but I was totally caught off guard on what it was. And the gentleman's like, "Well, you're studying what witchcraft is. You're studying alternative religions. Just as a researcher, this seems more like you because you're a deep thinker and you like artwork, and you're a writer and things like that." I'm like, "Okay." So I gave it a chance, and the more I read of it, the more I've decided that it was simply speaking the same things I already thought.
You were already living it, so basically...
It just gave a name to a philosophy that I was already living by for the most part.
Yeah, and there are differences between various subcultures. Not everybody that's gothic or dresses in black or wears the darker makeup or whatever. Not everybody that does that is satanic.
Right.
And some people just like black.
Right, and some people that...
Right. I mean, not every witch is left-hand path, or Aleister Crowley follower or something like that. Not every goth is a Satanist. I mean, there's Christian goths, there's Wiccan goths. They fall into all different types. Of course, there is a large overlap between the different groups, because typically when someone is a little more willing to embrace that shadow aspect, and I say shadow as a Carl Jungian collective shadow type mentality, we appreciate the darker aspects of life and don't just try to lie to ourselves that everything is light and fluffy and full of roses. We're actually more balanced because we see both halves. And I think because of that duality and the acceptance of everything that is frowned upon by the majority of society, I think it makes it so much easier for us to accept the other groups that are like us, and there's always going to be some overlap.
Right, and I get that. That almost, warrants the question about, that's almost a more giving view, because most Christian groups can't get along. Most Protestants don't get along with the Methodists don't like the Baptists don't like anybody,
Right, and I know this because I came from a Christian household, and I studied Christian religions too. I mean, I made a choice in who and what I am. And the more I researched it, the more I discovered things like the Crusades, 100 years or more of people killing each other over religion, when if you take away some of the fundamentals, they're very much alike. And then those groups splinter down and become other groups that hate each other, and yet they're still calling themselves Christian or Muslim or whatever, even as a collective. So why is it so awful that other people choose a different path that is more accepting of everyone, even if they're not the same?
Right. And once again, these are views that are not popularly known views of, you know, the Church of Satan. They are. I mean, there's so much Hollywood and so much. I don't want to say misinformation, but I'm pretty sure you would say it was misinformation.
There is. As long as we've been around answering these same questions, and the books have existed, and the website for the churchofsatan.com has been out there for people to look at the frequently asked questions and read the books for themselves, we still have to contend with things like the Craigslist killer or, you know, something like that. It just destroys so much progress.
Well, it's just basically another label. I mean, if you didn't have a specific label to go by, they would either like you or don't like you. But
True.
with the title of Satanist, then it's automatically, well, we don't like you because then they have an excuse. Not just they're pig-headed.
But unfortunately, the we don't like you part comes from watching a lot of really, really crappy B movies.
I like the B movies.
There's nothing wrong with B movies other than they don't have the financing, you know, behind them that other productions do. But I do think that the media has been so inundated by misinformation and bad research and other religions wanting to point the finger throughout time, and anything that is not godly is evil. It's been a domino effect over hundreds of years, and as wise and full of technology and accepting as we try to be as a society today, especially in, you know, this country, we're far from over in pointing the finger at anybody who isn't like us. And if you believe otherwise, then I don't know how to help you.
Here's your sign.
Right?
I'm going to ask this because I've begun dabbling in this and doing readings for people. You know, especially when you see the documentaries, there's a lot of tarot imagery, specifically the devil card. But there's a lot of tarot imagery that's always shown when anybody talks about any kind of occult practice.
Right.
Do you think tarot, and I know there's a connection with Aleister Crowley and the tarot, but do you think that tarot has any direct connection with, say, any kind of satanic practices anywhere?
No, the only thing that tarot truly is for a Satanist is Carl Jung used it as gateway keys to aspects of the mind. He saw it as a tool to tap into the subconscious. And Satanists are very much into science and rationalism. So that's the only very broad stroke I could call it. And as far as Aleister Crowley, he created something that he called the Thoth deck. It's similar to tarot, but not exactly. I don't know enough about the details of Crowley and the OTO. I do know it's an esoteric society that branched off of the Golden Dawn and Crowley's teachings after World War II.
Right. And that once again adds, there has been a lot of thought, and this isn't something that just came out of the woodwork yesterday. The Church of Satan, while just coming into actual existence as a I don't want to say corporation, but as a church in the 70s, correct?
Yes.
The practices have been around for 1,000 years, 2,000 years?
Yes, in one form or another, you have always had free thinkers and rebels, such as Voltaire during the French Revolution and before, Galileo bucking authority, saying that the Earth is, not flat. All sorts of scientific freethinkers and creative libertines that push the envelope for their time. We've always had some form of devil's advocate out there. Anton LaVey just codified it and put it all together and called it a church.
Right.
If you could enlighten or send one message to the world, what would it be?
I think we need to view each other as what we are. human beings who are flawed. And I would encourage people to be less judgmental and ask more questions. And will you do so? Keep your mouth closed and your ears open. That's the only way we're going to learn.
Yeah, I would have to agree. What's the old saying? You have one mouth and two ears for a reason.
Exactly.
You should listen twice as much as you speak.
Sorry, my
Well,
mouth can't hear that.
Huh?
My mouth can't hear that.
Yeah, I know that.
sadly, it's been said that most people only hesitate between speaking, not because they purely want to listen to what somebody else has to say, but they're just waiting and bidding their time to speak again.
Right. And I'm going to open this can of worms, and I actually have a graphic to go with it so everybody knows what both statues I'm talking about, and you probably figured out what I'm going to ask you from just that statement. But what is your opinion about what is happening in Oklahoma City with the two statues? One is already there. One is simply proposed.
We of the Church of Satan believe that all religious iconography and symbols should not be a part of government or forced upon the public. It is a personal choice. It is a deeply individual aspect. And the fact that they're doing it in the first place is not so much to fight for religious freedom. It's to rake in $36,000 that they've already ran off with.
Wow.
The people that were raising the money to do it, I don't believe truly had any intention of putting the statue up there. And I know one of the people that were involved in it, he was a former member of the Church of Satan who got kicked out for his horrid, rude behavior to everyone. And I believe he was a charlatan who decided to rake money in from people that would fall for his dog and pony show, and he ran off with the money.
And so it once again it becomes a black eye that you once again have to constantly answer questions about.
Right, because people are assuming it's of the official Church of Satan when we have nothing to do with it.
Well, what is your opinion? Do you think that was I understand in practice it was a really crappy idea, but in principle, do you agree with the fact that there should be a statue from the Church of Satan, maybe a Buddhist statue, maybe a
Star of David.
The Star of David.
No, I don't think religion has any place in the public eye because it's instigating people have to choose to be something over something else or believe in anything at all when we should have the right to make that choice on our own. Synagogues and churches exist for people to go into them to worship as they see fit. To do otherwise and put it in a government building, what happened to separation of church and state? I don't care if you put out every single religion, it should have no bearing on government.
Well, quite frankly, I think that you cannot, or the government cannot sit there and scream separation of church and state when they put up a Christmas tree on the White House lawn.
True, I mean, but we see it as a symbol around the world as, oh, that's what the holiday is, when most people who put up a tree don't even know where the symbol came from.
Yeah.
And like most traditional holidays that most people celebrate came from pagan rituals. So, that's just ignorance of history.
Let's see, when I went to school, in a public school in the city, we celebrated everything. We didn't care, Hanukkah, Christmas, Halloween, solstices, Easter, and that's what they were called. Now it's spring break and winter break and blah, 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 to pretty it up.
Right.
Let's call it what it is. You are out because it's Easter week.
Right.
Call it Easter break. I don't understand. I've been to many different churches. I've been to plenty of them, and I have friends in almost every single religion.
So do I.
And
I think I shock people when I say, I'm a reverend in the Church of Satan, but I have several Catholic priests that are friends of mine, and I know a Buddhist. and we all get along. We do religious panels together for conferences, answering questions from the general public, and we find when we walk away, we actually have more in common with each other than we do differences.
Right, and I used to work in an office with 3, we called us the regular people, and the rest of the entire office, all the bosses were Jewish. We had the best Christmas parties ever.
Well, my business manager is Jewish, and he jokes and says that he's not a religious Jew, he's just a money Jew.
Yeah, that would have been Jacob.
And that doesn't fall into any kind of preconceived notions or cliches at all either.
Oh, no, but he jokes about it. He said, I'm a businessman first and foremost, and I'm trying to help you become an even better businessman than you already are. And, we joke about it and everything because, his girlfriend is a pagan. I'm a Satanist, and he's a Jew, and it almost sounds like an old joke.
The Satanist, the Jew, and the Wiccan walked into the bar.
Yes.
No, I completely understand. Because, like I was saying, the 2 youngest in the office was me and another girl. We were like 18 and 19 years old. And the boss gave us like a $200 budget and said, go out and buy holiday decorations. As long as it doesn't say Merry Christmas or Happy Hanukkah, I don't care what you buy. Oh, it was a burlesque show in there. It was great. And we had a blast, but it wasn't about religion.
Right.
And that's the reason why I asked about the vocabulary earlier, is because, like you said, you've been on numerous panels, and you have more in common. You have more in common because you're human than any kind of religious dogma or beliefs from anywhere. We have stuff in common because we're human. We're all human. We're basically we're arguing over the manual.
Exactly.
When who cares what the manual says, as long as it tells you basically don't be mean to other people, don't sleep with your best friend's husband or wife or whatever. And
for us, it's just a matter of common sense and responsibility. We just see, that's rude, don't do that. It just, there's no reason to, whereas other people have to have guilt trips and you're going to burn in a hell if you do this. And we just say that it's common sense, cause and effect.
Right.
Well, see, technically, I could go to his church and have a nice time. Mm-hmm. I'm one of the odd ones. I was born, my parents were First Baptist and atheists. So, that's a big swinging door right there.
Right.
But I don't see, I think they just have their own different little parties. But other than that, all religions are all,
It should be about the gathering.
Be kind to people. Don't be a jerk.
It should be, yes.
Yeah, I think it should be about the gathering and the fellowship, the fraternity. It should be just about having people of common beliefs coming together to further those beliefs along. However you plan on practicing that. If you have to kneel, stand for 2 hours, fine.
Yeah, but you get the cool cookie and the wine at the end,
true,
so it works.
But if you're like me, most Baptists, in my point of view, because I'm not associated with the Baptists anymore, but I've heard about hell and brimstone for the last 35 years, you know what I mean? There's like you said, there's more in common than there is difference.
You know who scares me more than the Satanists?
The Wiccans?
No,
the guys with the snakes.
Wow.
Yeah. There was one of those gentlemen that ended up getting bitten and died because he refused treatment.
Right. They scare me. Satanists, they're just people, but these people are crazy with the snakes.
But you have to respect. Their strength of belief.
True. But that snake's still gonna bite you.
To a normal human being, getting bitten by a snake and then dying, that seems like a natural progression. But to think that something's going to stop it, and you believe enough in it to where you're not going to seek medical treatment, I would respect them for their belief.
I respect them for having belief, but I still kind of look at it as it's pure stupidity because they don't seek medical help. Because for us, there is no outer deity that's going to save them. Cause and effect, science and biology, poison is going to kill them.
Right. If you want to play with snakes, get the kind that aren't poisonous. You can play with those all day.
The plastic one?
Well, no, there's like gardener snakes.
No.
Rat snakes. They're not going to kill you.
Well, just don't get a rat in California because they have rat fever, and they killed a boy. And I am not kidding.
I know, and Petco's getting sued over it.
Yeah.
But that's a whole other can of worms.
We've been talking a lot tonight, Corvus, about vocabulary. What, in your opinion, why do you think people are so polarized by the words like satanic or occult? And what do you think we can do to change that?
I think it comes from ignorance, and I think we're doing something about it right now. We're discussing it and explaining it in a rational fashion.
Yeah, but is there anything else we could do?
Go on television. I write books. I go to lectures at universities. Trust me, if I knew more how to get the word out, other than I did the Lexi Show, which is a Christian show on the BET, and as many magazine articles as will come to me. I wish I knew any other way that I could get it out there better.
Yeah. Like I said, we have. I can't stress it enough. What you said earlier, we have so much more in common than we have differences, and people just don't.
Right.
They don't want to understand that because of words, and it's. I don't know.
I think it's purely out of ignorance and superstition, fear. Like I said, as much as we'd like to think of ourselves as a modern, scientific, intelligent society, we certainly still throw around words of fear and hatred over things that are so easy to explain if we just listen to one another.
I must say real briefly that the chat room is in love with your cat over there.
Well, I didn't plant her there, but Selena's a baby kitten that we rescued from getting hit by a truck, and she stayed with us. So it clearly shows we don't sacrifice our animals. There's 4 more running around here of various ages up to 13.
Wow. You've written, pushing 20 books now, 25?
I'm trying to finish 23 through 25 at the moment, yes, for later in the year, and one for the beginning of next.
And I do know you've been, and I love the title for this one, Have Yourself a Merry Little Krampus. I wish more people knew the story of Krampus. We actually have a show on our network here that actually did an entire show to inform people of the legend of Krampus, because most people in America have never heard of Krampus. It's it's growing, but most people don't know the other Saint Nick, the kind of the biker
right.
leather jacket wearing Saint Nick that Krampus could be classified as.
Right.
But of all these subcultures that you have researched, explored, interviewed people with, is there one particular one that is more compelling to you? And is there one that you just can't identify with at all? It's just so far out there.
That's really tough to say. I think the death metal, black metal crowd I get along well with because they like the symbolism of Satanism, but they tend to be more in the Luciferian anger, hate, what I call baser level of entry-level Satanists who just is so angry at how different religions and, alternative lifestyles are treated that they're just lashing out. Like I said, I do have many friends that are in that lifestyle, and I appreciate their creativity, but our mental outlook is different. I don't have any problem with it, and I support music, so, I've been friends with death metal distros before, the people that run them, so I don't really think that I have any major issue with any of them. I get along with just about everybody.
Yeah, and one thing I noticed from the list of your books, one area that you haven't delved very much into is the cryptozoology.
I'm kind of new to that. My grandmother was very much in love with Bigfoot, UFOs, and the Bermuda Triangle, which kind of prompted me to be the type person I am today. And I've got friends like Mr. Gerhardt, who's on Monster Quest a lot. Scott and I have become, Scott and Ken, a few friends out there that do the same thing, are very nice, respectable people. But I haven't really delved too much into it myself. I tend to go more towards the mythological, like zombies and vampires, than I do anything else. It's just a matter of preference, I think.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, no, I was just curious. Have you ever been interested in or done any research for some of the werewolves, the lycanthropy? I mean, you can basically put were in front of any creature, and there's been some form. There's been were, bear, just about everything. But the entire concept of that, is that something you've ever researched or thought about researching?
It has, and I had considered writing a book on werewolves. If you do a quick search on Amazon, you'll find that there's maybe 20 different books on the subject of were creatures, and a good share of them are ancient texts, like Montague Summers and that nature and before. Whereas there's thousands of books on vampires and a few hundred on zombies. So, I'm kind of curious why they don't have as much out there. Maybe it's because people just assume they know everything and there's limited information about it. But yeah, I have thought about doing something, a short book on that subject, but then again, there's been a few copies out there that exist that people have done such a fantastic job already. I don't know what I could possibly add to it.
Yeah, kind of kicking a dead horse, so to speak.
Well, Jody just came out with a new book on werewolves.
Yeah, we know we're good friends with Jody Cook. I don't know if you've ever met him on the convention circuit. Kind of tall, blonde-haired guy, cryptozoologist.
I've heard the name, but we haven't met yet.
We've met Ken and Scott and
And
Lyle and Jody.
Yeah.
So yeah, we know a good group out of the cryptoids. But we've pretty much covered all of them.
Yeah.
We know
Right.
Bertina Varney, who does the vampires.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I'm good friends with her. We've met that several times at Scarefest in Lexington, Kentucky.
We've met actually twice at Lexington, Kentucky.
Right.
Corvus, I have to ask this. I'm going to ask you another open-ended question, and trust me, some of my questions do have an end, but this one is open-ended. Mm-hmm. What is your opinion of the quote-unquote paranormal right now?
Well, I've explained this before on a few shows. I don't get asked it very often. I feel that ghosts, or what people perceive as ghosts, aren't the living, sentient aspect of who someone was. I believe it is the residual energy, because our nervous system and our brains are made up of energy, and like Einstein said, energy is neither created nor destroyed. So I think when you die, it just simply dissipates, and it just gets kind of mixed up with everybody else's, and it may reform in a certain way. But I don't think science has fully explained, and a lot of the paranormal researchers that I'm friends with will agree with me, that their whole reason behind being an investigator and using devices to try to figure this out through EVP readings and recordings and heat sensors, they're trying to figure out what it is. But of course, there are some people out there that will always say, "Oh, that's great Uncle Joe or whatever." When I don't personally prescribe that, I think when you die, your body deteriorates, you die, and your energy just goes in with everything else. It becomes part of the universe again.
There's a question in the chat room that asks, what are your thoughts on the Ouija board?
I think it's a very quaint and ancient divination form. I like them because of that spooky spiritualist history that they have. But like I said, I don't believe you're actually communing with another person. I think you're tapping into some type of energy that might be out there, but it also could be very well put that you're subconsciously guiding yourself to the answers that you're seeking.
I don't know. I'm a dowser. I don't play with the Ouija board.
I think, yet again, that's another Hollywood misconception with Captain Howdy and things like that. I am friends with Robert Murch, and we're working on a book together for next year, where it's the history of spiritualism, and of course he's going to be talking an awful lot about the history of the original talking boards, as they were called, and I find it fascinating. I'm not going to say, oh, it's all crap, don't use it, don't follow it, don't study it. I think everything in history has a relevance. I think everything has an importance not to be forgotten. But I don't think we should blindly throw our entire being into any one particular area of thought or research, because it narrows everything else that might also be an equally valid answer.
What I found most interesting about Robert Birch is he says he's never played with a single one of his boards, and he's like owns the most in the world or something like that.
Right. I mean, the game company came to him as the world's foremost expert to help them design the latest one that they came out with as their anniversary board that I got a chance to see at Fairfest last year.
Wow.
But he's never played with one. I mean, he gets them and puts them away.
Right.
I guess it would be like being a car collector. He just enjoys either the way they look or the way they aesthetically or they are pleasing to him. So he's collected them
right.
and followed their history. Kind of like he's the Jay Leno of Ouija board. Jay Leno.
I would agree with that. I think without having someone who's a serious scholar to collect them because of something like that, he couldn't approach it as objectively to really inform people of the cold hard facts of this is what it is versus what he feels it is.
Right.
I'm not saying you shouldn't have emotion and passion into the things that you research. I'm sure he does for a particular area. So I hope I'm not being too vague here.
Not to me.
Okay.
Have, speaking of Ouija boards and the symbolism that they can represent, could you kind of help inform our viewers? The pentagram is notoriously associated with satanic practices, the Church of Satan. But
right.
Also,
I mean,
it's also a pagan.
We do use a form of it, yes.
But it's also a pagan symbol that has been around and been used, and was actually used by the church for a while, wasn't it?
But it's still just a symbol, because if you turn it upside down, it becomes a pinnacle, not a pentagram.
Right. I mean, symbols are nothing more than a psychological tool to help us identify or explain something. Each point represents something, the elements. For the Christians, it was the 5 points symbolizing the hands, feet, and head of man. So, people put so much negative emphasis on what a symbol means as if they're the ones truly giving it power. They're giving it power over themselves because of their fear and ignorance.
Yep.
And intention plays huge throughout your life, and a lot of people don't understand that either.
Yeah, I mean, I rarely wear a signal bafflement unless it's my ring or occasionally a lapel pin. I don't put it out there blatantly in people's faces because even though I'm a public person for my beliefs and I explain it as a media representative, I feel it's wrong to just shove it in someone's face, to offend them. Not that you don't have the right to wear your religious jewelry in public, but there's a fine line between being inappropriate and being someone of faith.
Right. Is there? I don't know. How can I ask this? With the Church of Satan, do you guys get along with everybody except for ignorant people? I understand.
Yeah.
Well, nobody likes ignorant people, so.
Yeah. And the power of stupid people in large groups is imposing. But I just wanted to make. Is there any kind of how how can I phrase this? Is there any misconceptions about people that you don't get along with that you'd like to help dispel and make sure people understand that you guys do get along with everybody?
I think the biggest misconception is we hate all Christians, and we don't. We just don't care. The entry-level Satanists might raise their fist and yell and say how they've been antagonized and everything. We just say they're ignorant to how we really think and feel, and if we don't want that brought into our lives and their negativity and stereotyping, we avoid it.
Well, I believe any religion, satanic, Catholic, whatever. I don't preach to you, don't preach to me. I have great friends, and we just don't discuss religion, and we get along quite happily.
Well, we don't proselytize. That is, we don't go door to door like the Jehovah's Witnesses and wake you up in the middle of the morning. But we have people like myself that answer questions to the public.
Right.
I don't feel that's forcing it down someone's throat. I get invited to come on radio shows. I don't, beat on your door, asking, hey, do you want to hear the good word of Anton LaVey?
No, I completely understand what you're saying. I have people come in my shop insisting I'm a Wiccan, and I'm not. But because I have a boutique and New Age type shop, I must be a witch.
Right.
What's that make me? I mean, I know my nickname's the Yeti, but really, what does that make me?
The Witch Keeper?
The Witch Keeper?
If I'm the Yeti Keeper, you're the Witch Keeper. I don't know.
Broom Maker, Witch Keeper?
That's right.
There we go.
But I mean, they come in and they're, and then they'll look around, and as soon as they see like the pendulums or the wands or the herbs, they like scurry out all upset and don't come back. And it's like, really? You're gonna go home and pour a glass of tea? Okay, it's still herbs, you silly people.
Well, and what's really funny in our general area here in East Texas, okay, specifically here in East Texas, there are a lot of quote unquote New Age stores that are actually just head shops.
Yes,
right.
God.
So when Kim opened her shop, there's no tobacco products, there's no pipes sold, there's no vapor stuff sold. People steadily walk in. Where are the glass pipes at? Where are the water pipes at? Well, you don't sell none of that here? Isn't this supposed to be a head shop? And it's like, oh, no,
right.
Not really.
The name is Boutique and Stones, not Boutique and Stoners.
Yeah, we kind of run across that. But, once again, that goes across to people assuming they see, we have a huge, it's called Metaluna, half moon. There's a huge moon shape with a lotus in the middle of it as their sign out front. People see that lotus and they automatically assume
it's a pot leaf somewhere in there.
It has to be some kind of fancy pot leaf they've just never smoked yet. And people pull in, but you feel for them.
Well, we did talk earlier about people in ignorance, there's no getting around it.
Well, and they're powerful, and they're breeders. That's what scares me. Ignorant people are powerful breeders.
Have you seen the movie Idiocracy?
Yes, I have, and it's freaking hilarious.
It's hilarious, but it's also, to me, not only satire and a comedy, but it's also horrific because it's definitely the way we're going as a society when we're watching Here Comes Honey Boo Boo instead of Discovery Channel Science or something to educate ourselves. The populace is becoming increasingly dumbed down.
Right.
And to me, that's a tragedy.
Now, let me tell you. I do enjoy a good episode of Honey Boo Boo, but I also know who Tesla is, okay? I can go either way here, folks.
Well, and you know what? I
Sorry.
have to say this. I'm not totally against.
I don't watch it all the time.
Some of the reality TV, and I understand the escapism that it provides. I personally am more concerned about the processes that are in our public education system, specifically the fact that we're not teaching a generation to think. We're teaching the generation or the third generation now how to take a test.
We're teaching them how to push buttons. They're not even learning how to do handwriting anymore.
They're regurgitating information.
Yeah.
They're not teaching to acquire new information.
I was shocked when someone explained to me this new way of doing math, and they're not teaching cursive anymore.
Right.
And I'm kind of appalled. It's like the more I look at the world I grew up in versus what the future generations will be, it's about as far away from me using a feather quill pen that I own versus my laptop that we're Skyping on.
book is a good one. It kills me when, oh, my 2-year-old can download her own apps and buy them and install them. Okay, a 2-year-old shouldn't know that. They should be learning how to stack blocks and...
Yeah.
Well, you know, and this is a little off topic, but I'm going to bring it up anyway. Did you know that they actually have not diseases but afflictions that we have actually become too clean? There are actually conditions and it's specifically in parts of Europe where it's being treated right now, where they're actually like rubbing dirt on people to help give them some immunity.
Well, because of the what is it? The antibacterial, and then you've got the hand sanitizers. I mean, we grew up with a 10-second rule. If it hit the floor in 10 seconds, you got it in your mouth. Hey, it was gone.
Drinking water from a water hose.
Now,
right. I mean, there's actually a disease that you can get by being in hospitals too long in too much of a sterile environment, and then you break out in blisters because your body is infected. Yeah. I have a friend who can't even get into a pool because of the scabs on his body because he has this in his system. I forget off the top of my head. It's been a 16-hour day for me. But it's kind of scary that we've become so desensitized, sterilized, and our IQs are diminishing. There's countless things I could go on. My personal opinions of society and what's wrong with it is in a mirror darkly if you want to pick up a copy on Amazon. It's certainly not politically correct.
Right.
I don't know. I believe everybody should plant a tomato plant out in the middle of their yard just so their kids and grandkids can go out and pick one off the vine and eat it. Don't wash it. Don't spray it down with anything. Just eat it.
Have you ever tasted a real fresh one out of your own garden versus the ones you get in the store? I mean, that's a world difference.
Totally different.
But
totally different.
Maybe it's got a bug on it. Maybe it's got some dirt on it. Eat it.
I mean, just the flavor. The flavor alone is totally different. So yeah.
But I did it with my daughter when she was 2 years old. The tomato plant started going out, so she knew every summer that was her candy tree.
Yeah, and like my two boys, both of them ate enough dirt, and they got to eat dirt when they're growing up because you got to have something for the watermelon seeds to sprout into, right? Corvus, you've been an absolute joy to have on tonight. I want to thank you so much for coming on. We're kind of at the end of our time right now. I've been putting up your graphic every so often throughout the show, telling people to go to corvusnocturnum.com. They can find all your books there, correct?
Almost all of them. There's some that I still have yet to get around to adding on. We're rebuilding darkmoonpress.com to make it a little more user-friendly and adding 40 more books over the next year and a half. Right now, I'm very pleased to say I'm in the middle of formatting Robert Lusardo's biography. And for those of you not familiar with the name, he is the heavily tattooed, often villain in Hollywood movies and TV shows such as CSI Miami and Cold Case. Mm-hmm. So I'm very proud to bring Robert into the Dark Moon Press family. And even though it's not a metaphysical or horror type book like we're known for, his life story reaching out to other people that they can survive hardships and become something out of the tragedy is the inherent message that I'm really trying to say in putting this out for him.
And I see that about a quarter of your books can also be purchased through Schiffer Publishing.
Right. Schiffer Publishing, Amazon.com. I do have links on my website. Most of them redirect you to Schiffer or Amazon, simply because I don't always have time to handle the shipping of every book that I've written personally when I have a publishing house of 130 copies, or 130 titles rather, to get out there. But if someone wants something specifically from me and have it autographed, they can write to me through my website or through my Facebook page, and I'll be happy to direct them to PayPal to get a hold of me so that I can autograph one and get it sent directly to them from my house.
Well, I brought up Schiffer Publishing because we have quite a few friends who are authors for Schiffer, including my co-host, Monday evening co-host, who's in the room right now, Mary Gasparo.
Oh, okay. Yes, Schiffer has been very good to me. The quality of their color books is second to none.
Oh, absolutely. I have a whole pile of Schiffer books over there.
And guys, with that, as much as I hate to do it, I got to cut it off. Corvus, if you would please stick around for just a minute.
Not a problem.
Everybody, be sure and tune into PEN every night of the week. Tomorrow we will be doing what we always do on a Saturday, which is repeating all of our live shows. So if you've missed a live show this week, tune in anytime during the day and try to find your shows that you did miss. Coming not this weekend, but next weekend, we're going to have an exciting announcement about a group of people we're very excited to have come join the PEN family. And I'm going to leave you hanging with that. You're just going to have to wait to hear from us. Be sure and hit the social media. Yes, you do. Be sure and hit the social media buttons down below our little map right there, and come and follow us everywhere we go. And with that, if you're going out this weekend, be safe, protect yourself, have fun.
And buy stuff from Metaluna.
Yep. And if you're up north, get a good snow shovel, because you guys are going to need it.
Oh, don't even get a snow shovel. Hit the stores. Get all the
Milk and bread and eggs.
No, don't get milk, bread, and eggs. Get the canned goods and run.
Good night, guys.
Night.